Welcome to The Explainer. You know, there's this invisible architecture that powers pretty much everything you do. It tracks your groceries, it approves your credit card, it even remembers what page you're on in your ebook. We interact with it hundreds of times a day, but we never actually see it. Well, today we're going to make it visible. We're talking about the database.
So, let's start with a little question. What do all those things, groceries, credit cards, library books, really have in common? The answer is a piece of technology that quietly, and I mean quietly, runs the modern world.
That's right. They all run on databases. It's a technology so fundamental, so deeply woven into the fabric of our society that most of the time we just don't even notice it's there. And they are absolutely everywhere. Databases are the unsung heroes of our digital lives. So let's take a closer look at just how much we rely on them every single day.
Okay, just think about this for a second. Your last trip to the supermarket. When they scan that barcode, a database is instantly hit to find the price and update the inventory. When you tap your credit card, a database checks your limit and records the sale. Booking a flight, checking out a library book, scrolling through Amazon, every single one of these things relies on a database in the background, just managing massive amounts of information seamlessly.
But here's the thing. It wasn't always this smooth. Not even close. To really appreciate how revolutionary databases are, we need to jump at a time machine and go back to an age of digital chaos, the age of the messy, disconnected file.
Our source material gives us this perfect example to work with. Let's imagine a real estate agency called Dream Home, way back before modern databases existed. In this world, each department had its own records, in its own separate files.
And this is where the chaos really begins. So the sales team has a file for a client. At the same time, the contracts team has another file for the exact same client. Now, what happens if that client changes their phone number? Which file gets updated? Do they both? Maybe neither? This kind of duplication wasn't just messy, it was a guaranteed recipe for mistakes.
Honestly, this whole digital file cabinet approach was just a nightmare. Your data was all separated, so you could never see the whole picture. It was duplicated everywhere, so you'd have two different addresses for the same person. The data itself was tied to specific programs, meaning a simple software update could break everything. Different departments couldn't even share files, and asking a new question? Forget it. It meant writing a whole new program from scratch. It was slow, it was expensive, and it was totally unreliable.
So you can see this chaos just couldn't last. Businesses desperately needed what we now call a single source of truth. And this demand for order is what sparked a revolution, leading to the invention of the database.
The first piece of this incredible solution is the database itself. And the best way to think about it is like a central, shared library for all of an organization's data. So instead of all these disconnected, messy files, all the information is brought together logically. It becomes one shared resource for the whole company.
But of course, a library needs a librarian, right? Well, that's the second part of the solution, the Database Management System, or DBMS. This is the powerful software that basically acts as the gatekeeper and the manager for the entire data collection. It handles everything from setting up the data structure to controlling exactly who gets to see what.
And this right here, this is the revolutionary shift. We go from a world where every single application has its own separate, messy files, to a new, organized world where all the applications share one central database. It's literally the difference between a dozen scattered locked file cabinets and one intelligent, accessible library for the entire company.
So, you might be wondering, how does a single database manage to serve so many different people, from sales to accounting, all at the same time? Well, the secret is in its really clever architecture.
It uses this brilliant three-level system. So at the very top, you have the external level. That's what you, the user, actually see. The sales team gets a view with just sales data, for example. In the middle is the conceptual level. You can think of that as the master blueprint for all the data. And then at the bottom, you have the internal level, which is just about how it's all physically stored on the computer's hard drives. The DBMS is the magic in the middle that connects all these layers.
Now, this three-level structure gives us an incredibly powerful benefit called data independence. What this means is that a database administrator can completely change how the data is stored physically, at that internal level, without breaking a single one of the applications that uses it. You can even change the master blueprint without messing up what all the users see. This makes the entire system so much more flexible and way easier to maintain over time.
So, what did this huge shift from file cabinets to databases really mean for companies? Well, like any major technological leap, it came with a whole new set of amazing advantages and some pretty serious challenges too.
The advantages were, well, transformational. With just one central copy of the data, all those inconsistencies just vanished. Security became way simpler. You only have to control access at a single point. But the real game changer was sharing. Data went from being stuck in a private, siloed file to becoming a shared, company-wide resource that dozens or even hundreds of people could use at the exact same time.
But all this power came with a price tag. These systems were complex. They were expensive, needing special hardware and highly paid experts to run them. And while they were super flexible, they often weren't as blazing fast as a simple, custom-built file system. The biggest risk, though, when your entire business depends on one system, a failure can be absolutely catastrophic.
And this whole evolution, it took decades. It kicked off in the 60s with these pretty rigid tree-like models. But the real big bang of the database universe happened in 1970, when a guy named E.F. Codd proposed the simple but brilliant relational model. Basically, organizing all data in simple tables. That one idea is the foundation for almost every database you use today, and it led directly to the SQL language and eventually the entire modern web.
So, from messy file cabinets to the global interconnected cloud, the database has fundamentally shaped our world by bringing order to data chaos. Which leaves us with one last thing to think about. In this new age of artificial intelligence and just an insane explosion of data, what will the next database revolution look like? And how is it going to change our lives all over again?